Hello and welcome once again to Byte. Today we are actually taking requests. User Foxes Can Fly has asked me if I could do a quick rundown on a permissions plugin. Now, there are plenty of plugins out and about at the moment, such as Permissions X and Group Manager and the like, for managing your permissions, but the one I tend to use, and the one I'm most familiar with, is Permissionsbukkit, which is fairly simple to use, easy to set up, and seems to be compatible with just about every version of Bukkit so far. So this is the one I'll be using today. You can also see here I've got the Essentials plugin as well, so I can use its features and show how you add certain permissions on by command later on. I'll come to that in a moment. So basically what I've done here is I've downloaded Permissionsbukkit and I've downloaded Essentials from the Bukkit website, and I've popped them into my plugins folder here. Alright, so if I quickly run my server, here we go, you should see, if I click on plugins, that as the server starts it will create its own, each plugin will create its own folder with its details in. There we go, just starting up, there's the Essentials, there's Permissionsbukkit, and the server's done, so I'll get rid of that. If I go into Permissionsbukkit, you should then see the config file. This is what you'll be editing. If you're hosting yourself on your own computer, this shouldn't be a problem. If you're on a hosted service, you might need to make sure that your host has file access so you can get to this file to edit it. So if I go into that, you should see half a ton of writing. I'll skip through all this and get to this important bit at the bottom here. Right. Basically, you can control most of this plugin from within the actual game itself. So you can add permissions, set groups, etc. But the only thing you need to do through the config file here is to actually set the groups up before you start. This has to be done through here. So this is the important part here. Ignore this bit here. This is the users. This is just a data store, and as new users come to your server, they'll just be added onto the bottom. So you can actually, through the config file, you can actually see where everyone is within your group structure and what permissions they've got. You can edit this, but just be careful about moving data about. As with every other YAML file, you've got spacings here. So default, insert, and there's a certain amount of spaces. If you break any of these, you may find the whole thing stops working. So just be aware of that when you're editing. Okay, this bit here is the important bit, and I'll just guide you through what each of these bits mean. Okay, you can see here all the default settings that come down when you first start up the plugin. You've got the users at the top, which you can ignore for the moment. That's just a data store where everything's kept. Below you've got groups, which is the main section we'll be looking at. Okay, here we've got 3 users by default. We've got the default user, and we've got the admin user, and we've got user. Sorry, not users, these are groups. Default group, admin group, user group. For some reason, they've got these in the wrong order. What I'll quickly do, ignore this. This is just to get everything lined up properly, because technically, with the inheritance, it goes default user admin, but they've got them in the wrong order. So I'll just quickly move this around. That's better. Okay. Now, as you can see here from default, this is the one. This is the group that all new players will be placed into. They've got permissions setting, and that permission there is set to false, which means obviously permissions.build, you can't build anything. So anyone new can't build. And to set to true, it's that simple. There we go. Now all new people can build, which is the way I like it. Below we've got user. As you can see, it's got the same permissions node, and then below that you've got a secondary node there. So in their first example, which I'll just change it back to, there you go, default users can't build, user can build, because that's true. Also in the creative world, they've also got that permission as well. So you can actually have per world permissions. So if I wanted to add in world, the main world, I'd go world, colon, another space, cool plugin 2, true. There we go. And now we can use that, a different plugin in the world, one in creative and one in world. These aren't transferable, so you couldn't use cool plugin in world and you couldn't use cool plugin 2 in creative. They're world specific. As you can see there, I did all the indentations. Make sure you get that dead straight. As with any other YAML file, if you do knock out the spacings, it'll cause a bit of a problem. I'll show you how to get around that in a moment. Below these two settings, you've also got the inheritance setting, and as you can see below, that's dash space default, which means that the user group will inherit all permissions from the default group, which isn't a great advantage at the moment, because all they can do is build false. But because the user is inheriting, this build true overwrites any previous inheritance. There we go. So it inherits everything from the group above, but you can also overwrite permissions as well using this note here. And the same with admin. You've got permissions everything dot true, and then below you've got inheritance, and then the inheritance is from the user. So default, user inherits from default, and admin inherits from user. Because this is sort of like a skill tree, if you inherit from a group, you will also inherit from all the subgroups. So if I put a new permission on default, permissions dot yeah, true, there we go, the admin would also inherit that because it's inherited by user, if that makes sense. This is a little bit complex, but once you get the hang of, if you inherit, you gain all the traits of the previous group. That's not too complicated then. Right, and actually, that's about it. What I'll quickly do is I'll quickly add another group just to make it a bit more interesting. Right, I like roleplay servers, and this just doesn't hack it for me. User and admin are a bit poor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that to, I suppose, peasant. Whoops, if I can spell it properly. There we go. So default, that's the default one. That's probably best left as it is, because it takes the default from the actual name there. So that'll be the default rank. Peasant's the next rank up, and then I'll have that as warlord, and we need a warrior, I think, in the middle. So what I'll do is I'll copy warlord and paste it again to make a second group, or another group. Now you need to keep this exactly the same. So what I tend to do is take from the behind there the last bit, the previous group, and then select the whole lot. So if you paste it straight away, you'll still get the same spacing. So if I do copy and then select behind that group and paste, you should see it's got the same spacings. And now what I'll need to do is just make sure that the inheritance is correct. So default, peasant inherits from default. Warlord is going to be the highest rank, so we'll make that a soldier. And soldier should inherit from peasant, so we need to change this. So if I just copy and paste that there, and again warlord inherits from soldier, so if I copy soldier and paste into inheritance there we go. There we are. So as you can see there, default inherits from nobody, peasant inherits from default, soldier inherits from peasant, warlord inherits from soldier, and to be honest, you can just keep on going like that. You can create as many groups as you like. Just make sure that you've got the right inheritance. You can also do little offshoots. So soldier inherits from peasant, warlord inherits from soldier. What do we need? We also, if I put another group in, I paste the same data. Oops. Yeah, not that data. Hang on. If I just copy the soldier, copy, paste that into there. There we go. Change that to Miller. There we go, for a non-lethal alternative. So both soldier and Miller inherit from peasant. So you can choose your line of advancement, as it were. So you can have permissions dot kill for the soldier and permissions dot mill for the Miller. so the warlord would then inherit the permissions dot kill, but it would not inherit the permissions dot mill, you see, because it's not in the inheritance line. So you can actually split the career paths. So as a peasant, you can choose to be several different careers. So you can be a soldier or a miller, and with other plugins, you can actually get that to auto promote, perhaps, by a sign or something like that, so your players can actually choose their own route, and which comes with their own permissions. Okay, now we've created all of our groups. I'll keep it like this for the moment. If I just click save, oops, there we go. What I'd advise doing is quickly grabbing your groups section. There we go. Copy it, and then visit. Here we go. An online YAML parser. This one's quite a good one. Here, there you go. YAML-online-parser.appspot.com. This is the one I use, and all I do is I paste the details in here. There we go. And then if I just do, as you can see, the output's null at the moment, so if I just do a space and then a minus, there you go, it's got an output. And that is what it should look like. It should output a load of things like this with brackets and exclamation marks. If it does that, you're okay. You can then run the server. If I, for example, put the wrong spacing in here, there you go, if I accidentally deleted that, nothing will happen. But hang on, let's try this one. There we go, there we go. I've actually put a wrong space in, so it'll come up with a massive error and say line 7, column 9. So I could probably work down to line 7, column 9, and just make sure that's level. And if you level it out, it'll come back again. As long as you've got output here, you're ready to go. Okay, and that's about all the config you need to know. Obviously, you can add more groups here and add more permissions in each group by just popping the details there. Once that's done, you can then revert to Minecraft. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, here we are in the Minecraft world on my server, and I'm in game mode 0, and I want to use some essentials commands. So if I do /essentials, just to make sure, oh look, I don't have access to this command, so I don't have permissions, and I don't have permissions to heal, I don't have permissions to fly. So, do I have permissions for permissions? Nope. Right, what I'll quickly do is I'll add some permissions via the console. So let's have a look. Okay, I've quickly added myself permissions, so there we go. I've got no permissions, I've only got permission to use the permissions plugin, if that makes sense. A little bit round the houses, but so basically I haven't got permission to fly, I've only got permission to actually edit the permissions, just so I can show you how it works. Right, as an admin, you can select several options by using /permissions. This is the main command, and as you can see above there, you've got different options. If you've just edited your groups in your YAML file and you haven't restarted your server, you can do reload. This will grab the new groups you've added to your YAML. If I just do that, there we go, reloaded. So you can add a group on the fly as the server's running without the need to shut it down. The bottom two here are the ones we want to have a look at the moment, permissions group and permissions player. So if I do permissions group, you shall see the group commands, and here they are. So we can group list, which is listing all the groups, which I'll do now. So permissions group list, and there we go. There's everything we set up. We've got default, peasant, soldier, miller, and warlord. You can also see who's in the group, so permissions group players, and if I do default you should see me. There we go, there I am. Because that's a default group, I've been shunted straight into there by the plugin. The bottom one here as well, permissions group set perm, is the main one you'll be using, I think. That's the one I use most of the time. You can also use world as an option as well to designate just a world. So for example, I can't do heal. There we go. Whoops. There we go. So if I wanted to allow the default group to do heal, I would do permissions group, and then using this in here, set perm, and then I'd use the default, that's the group name, and then I'd use the essentials .heal, which is the permissions node of the heal command through Essentials. You can look that up on the plugin permission nodes. So if I do that, there we go. So now I should be able to heal. Yes, there we go. So I've added the perm to the default group, and then everyone in the default group can now do heal. Just to show you how that works with group inheritance, let's have a look. So if I do this one here, but I want to do fly essentials dot. No, I'll do feed. There we go. Essentials dot feed, and then I'll change the default group to peasant, because peasants are good at farming. So this command does permissions group set perm again. So I'm setting a perm on a group. The group's peasant, and they can use the feed command. So if I do that, all the people in the peasant group can now feed. So if I try and do feed, it doesn't work because I'm still in default. So I need to upgrade myself. Uh-oh. Hang on. Oh, okay, change time today. Kill that zombie. I forgot, I'm in game mode 1. Don't want to get murdered while I'm doing the tutorial. Where was I? Oh yes, feed. I can't feed because I'm still in default. I need to get to go away. Hang on, excuse me a second. Good, shut up. I need to get to the peasant rank. So to do this, I do permissions, and this time I do player. And if I just push enter there, you can see the options there. There you go. You can list the groups players in, because you can actually be in more than one group at the same time. You can set group, which puts people into only that group, or you can add a group. So you can keep the player in the existing group he's in, and then add him to another group as well. And there we go. You can also remove group to take the player out of that group. You can also use player set perm and unset perm to give or take away individual permissions for individual players. So I'll show that in just a second, but what I'll do first is the set group. So if I do permissions player, set group, and then me, and then peasant, wasn't it? So I couldn't do feed before. I'm now in peasant, and now I can do feed, because the peasant group has the feed permission. I can also still do heal from the default group. If it wasn't cooldown on there, because I inherit from the default group as well. So I can do everything the default player can do, like break. I can also do everything the peasant group can do. I can actually set myself back to default actually, because I think that didn't have build permissions. So if I go to default, there we go. I can't actually break anything in default, only in peasant or above. So if I wanted to fly as well, I could actually add, if I went back to, where is it? I'll just do this, permissions group, set perm, set perm, go away, rain. Good, go away. Okay, set perm, and then I want to put, what was it? Warlord, wasn't it? Warlord, and I want that to have essentials dot fly. There we go. So I can't fly at the moment, but if I set myself as in the warlord group, set group warlord. Oops. There we go, warlord. I can now use the fly command. There we go. So there we go. That's about it, really. You can move yourself around. So if I set myself as peasant, soldier, say, there we go. I can't use. Oops. I'm still in fly mode, but can I turn it off? I can't turn it off. Brilliant. So I'll have to just quickly set myself as warlord, turn that off, and set myself back to soldier again. There we go. So you can flick people about different groups. So if You can also add groups as well. So if you had a group that didn't inherit from anything, or had a special group that only could be got through a different mode, or just gave you a new permission. For example, on the server we have standard groups, which are sort of peasant, mason, architect, and admin. But you also have other groups. I use for sentry plugin, which allows people to attack certain groups. Now I don't want them to lose their existing status, but I want them to actually add a new permissions to people, which enables sentries to attack particular groups. So if that's the case, if I do permissions player, what's it, groups, oops, crunchy groups. You have to get the order right. This will show. Oops, I got the actual. And what have I done here? Permissions. If I do permissions player, groups, and crunchy, that will show me. There you go. I'm in soldier, but I can actually add a new group as well. So if I do permissions player add group instead of set group, and then crunchy Miller. There you go. I'm actually in Miller as well. So if I do this again to check what groups I'm in, there you go. I'm in 2 groups now. So I've got all the permissions from Miller, so I can mill, and I'm all the permissions from soldier, so I can kill as well. So I'm a soldier Miller. This is quite handy. So you can add individual groups on as well, so you're in several ones. But if I do a set group, that's the difference between an add group and a set group. An add group adds them on. If I do set group and crunchy Miller, there we go, and then check, it'll take me out of every group and put me into that specific group I've just said. And there we go. So basically you can add and edit and do all sorts of stuff in game using that without having to refer to the config files again. By adding permissions to a group, that will actually add them into the config file as well. All the last thing to do is to add individual permissions for individual players. So if I do group, I'm in a Miller, so I won't be able to do fly. Nope, can't do fly. But if you wanted an individual person you trusted very much, who hasn't got a particular rank, but he wanted him to have a permission, you could go permissions player set perm. It's a bit like the adding permissions to groups, but you're adding them to players. So I'd do crunchy essentials dot fly. There we go. So now, even though I'm in the Miller group, I can actually use the fly command. There we are. And that's about it, really. So I've added groups, I've changed groups, I've added permissions. You can add permissions to individual players, add permissions to groups. You can also use things like command signs, I suppose, or auto rank up to actually shunt people into different groups depending on what they want to do. So if you had a sign saying giving a server permission, or a server command I should say, if you clicked on a server command sign which did that command there, you could give people different permissions, or you could set them into different groups. And with essentials you can also do prefixes for the groups, which is quite handy, and make a sort of proper rank structure. So if you're in default, it comes up with newbie, and peasant comes up with peasant as a prefix, but that's just using the essentials plugin alongside the Permissionsbukkit plugin, and they all work very well. That's what I use on the Byte server. So there we go. I think that's about it. I'll pop a quick link to the YAML parser down below in the shortcut. I'll also pop in a quick demo permissions file as well, so you can grab that, which is a bit more themed than the standard one. Just copy it over the one you've got in your config file section, and you'll have an instant group section. So you can download that as well from the links below. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you later.